Hi, welcome to the Mosaics podcast. I'm Holly Beach, your host with the Idaho Office for Refugees. And today we are speaking with a really incredible woman from Pocatello. Her name is Lena Contor. She grew up in Ukraine and recently hosted the World Refugee Day celebration in Pocatello and has helped put on a lot of other amazing cultural festivals, fundraisers, and has been active in the response efforts in Ukraine since the war started. So, Lena, it's an honor to have you on Mosaics. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor for me to be here.
So, how did you get involved in organizing a World Refugee Day celebration in Pocatello? For those who are maybe not familiar with Pocatello, we don't have, there's not a resettlement agency there, but there's still a very active community. So, how did that come about that you started to help put those on?
Well, I should think, okay, which one, long version or short version?
Your
So,
choice.
okay, the shorter version is that I was one day working in my garden and a friend called me and mentioned that Pocatello never had World Refugee Day celebration. And apparently that all big cities have it. And that it's just not right that Pocatello had never had it. And I thought, well, of course, who am I to even think about it? And why are you even bringing it up to me? And then this thought of not having World Refugee Day in Pocatello kept coming back again and again. And when this happens, this is a sign for me that maybe this is an assignment for me from above. When like a thought doesn't want to leave my head,
Mhm.
that's when I take it more seriously. And then as soon as I start taking it seriously, different miracles start to happen and the right people showing up with different talents. That's exactly what I need for like if I were to put this event together. And so within a week, I knew it was meant to happen because I already had some, people who knew dancers from different countries, singers, and just, yeah, I felt like yeah, it was from above, and the tools were provided right away as soon as I started taking this idea seriously. And then everything just kind of happened.
Yeah. What is the community like in Pocatello? Do you have very many people from refugee backgrounds there?
Oh, yeah, we have at least, because I'm from Ukraine, I help refugees from Ukraine mostly. And so we have about maybe 15. We had more a couple of years ago, and people are moving to other states or leaving, going back to Ukraine because there are different issues, different problems. For example, one right now is the current government does not allow refugees to work. They don't kick them out like officially, but they don't allow them to work. So they're kicking them out without by, different means. And so people, because they don't want to work legally, so they have to go back to Ukraine. And so right now our community is smaller than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. It's about 15 people right now from Ukraine, but there are refugees from other countries. I have close friends from Haiti and um, trying to think, Congo. So we have, yeah, from Afghanistan. And through this World Refugee Day celebration, I met more refugees from other countries. And so, yeah, we have a few, maybe not huge community, but enough to be able to put an event together.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify on the work status. We've been seeing that for someone who, just for our listeners to clarify, if someone comes through the refugee resettlement program, they do have authority to work. But what's happening is some people were granted temporary status. So in Ukraine, because that was such an emergency situation, a lot of people were granted humanitarian parole, which is a temporary status to come and live safely here and work here and have a sponsor, which, Lena, I know you've sponsored people, including family members of yours. So that was happening. People were working, getting good jobs, providing for themselves. And then with parole and work authorization not being processed, people have lost that legal authority to work, which is obviously putting them in a huge bind of how do you provide for yourself. So that's what's changing for the refugee status from other countries. That work authorization is not changing. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Um, Lena, you've also been involved in not only efforts here in Idaho, but you've gone back to Ukraine to support people. Can you share a little bit about your efforts there? I'd love to hear, especially about um, the you were sharing earlier about the solar panel effort. I'm so intrigued by this project. Can you share about that?
Ooh, okay, yeah, I had 9 trips to Ukraine. They were to Poland and to Ukraine because in the beginning, most of refugees they were going through Poland. They were fleeing Ukraine through Poland because that's the closest country, and so that was a place where lots and lots of volunteers were needed. And so my first several trips were to Poland to help refugees there at the border of Ukraine and Poland. And then needs changed and we started going to Ukraine. And so my recent project, it's connected to Ukrainian festival that I organized this past February. We were raising solar lights for. They're just, oh, I wish I had one with me. They're small, like cylinder like solar lights. And the story, how it all started, is pretty amazing. It started about 2.5 years ago when Ukraine infrastructure was bombed, and so they had blackouts for weeks. And from the space, Ukraine looked like this, like a sea, because there was, it's just black. And I sent one solar light to my very, very good friend in Ukraine 10 years ago. And because I like doing outdoor stuff, and this is where my solar light goes everywhere with me. And she liked it too. And so I sent one to her, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And I think she forgot about it. And then she had 2 kids after that. And so when the war started, and she was in the middle, exactly where the war was in Kharkiv, where it was like the worst. And so she calls it meat grinder. She was like in the middle of meat grinder
Mm,
and with 2 little kids. And so she texted me one day and she said, your solar light, it's called Lucy. She said, Lucy saved us because for, several months in the dark with 2 little kids was pretty rough. And so she found that solar light and it was still charged. And when she texted to me, I had this feeling that this is what I can do. This is what Ukrainian people need. They all need Lucy.
mm-hmm.
And so I posted on Facebook and told them, can one person who knows me, can one person buy just one Lucy and send it to me? Because I'm going to Ukraine in a couple of weeks and I will take these Lucies and just give it out to people. And guess what? Within a week, I had about 180 boxes. And of course, people send more than one. Some send 5, 10, 20. One day my husband comes home and he's like looking for the door entrance, like, where's our house? Like, what are all these boxes doing in front of our house? And I told them, this is people from Facebook sending Lucy. And then the company found out, the company is called Empowered that make those Lucies. They emailed me and they said, what's going on? And that's part of the United States. Like, what are all those sales are about? And I told them I have this project, like very small project. I'm going to Ukraine and I just asked my friends to send, one Lucy a person because, to ask for more. I just cannot ask for more. But I thought one person can afford to buy one solar light. And they said, oh, this is so amazing. Can we do something special for you? And I said, yes, especially if you can give me some extra lights. And they said, okay, we'll just give you a very special price. And it was 30% off. It was, the price was 70% off
Oh,
from each light. So it
wow.
was only 30% price of original light. And I had to tell people, please stop buying those solar lights, just donate. So because the price was attached to my name. And they told me I will have it as long as the war is going.
Wow.
And so in the last 3 years, I sent thousands. I fundraised and I sent thousands and thousands of solar lights to Ukraine. And the last Ukrainian festival this past February was to do the same, to buy more solar lights. But then I had the feeling that there's a better way to use the money. And so I started pondering about it and praying. And within 2 weeks, this project just by miraculously came to me, to my knowledge that there are water towers that are being fixed because people didn't have water. It's in Kherson, and it's known for that dam that was bombed and swept by flood, all the cities and villages beneath the dam. And now they're trying to restore those water sources, but there is nothing to power it, to power them. And they were looking for sponsors to buy solar panels. And I thought, wow, this is almost just as close as possible to my original project to bring solar lights, but this is even better. This is solar power that will bring water to people.
Mm.
And it just felt right. I just like, as soon as I heard about this project, like my whole, like, like every cell gets excited, like in your body. And it just felt right and complete. And I thought, okay, this is where all the funds need to go. And so this is what I'm going to Ukraine in just about 3 4 weeks to see what they have done and to have that ribbon cutting ceremony for those stations. And so that first time those communities will have running water. And so they're super excited. I'm super excited.
Wow. That's amazing. It's so cool for me to think about Pocatello, Idaho being a source of, light, water in Ukraine. I think it's beautiful what you've done to bring people together. We talked before this interview and we had this kind of shared feeling of this initial instinct of you see something really horrible going on and you think, who am I to do anything? These are world powers. These are things out of my control. Who am I to do it? And I think when you were sharing that sentiment, I could relate to you so much and share about what you've learned to how to react to that feeling of who am I? Because you mentioned to me like I'm just a CNA, you
Yeah.
said to me I'm a nobody, and someone with power and money should do something. But you have that little continued tickle in your brain when an opportunity comes. How have you learned to respond to that?
Oh, you'd think it happened to me so many times that I had something, a project coming up to me, and first time I felt, yeah, who am I to even think, to even dare to do something about it? And then it already happened so many times that I probably should stop. And it's still this thought comes, but now I see that I put it behind faster than it was, it took first time. So the very first time when the war started, and I felt horrible because I talk to people. I have friends and family who are still there, and I talk to them every day. And oh, if I could convey what it's like, people haven't slept in their beds for months, years, because Russia, they bomb at night. It's just their thing. They just like to bomb when everyone is asleep, everybody is home. And so this way, if a building collapses, it kills more people,
Mm.
instantly. And so you never know, like it's like you never know which building is going to be next. And that's why, just in case, people have to sleep in bomb shelters. And our bomb shelters, nobody expected war, never ever. It's just a thing of the past that we would never have again. And so no one equipped, and it's just like a cellar with dirt. There's not even bathroom there. It's pretty horrible. And in winter they're very cold and people just get sick from even staying there, but that's what they have to do. And so they sleep on this dirt floor on like a couple of blankets. And so, yeah, the conditions are very horrible. And that's how people have been sleeping for the last a few years. And so, yeah, when I heard about it and I thought, this is so awful. I'm glad I'm here. But what about all those, millions of people, and especially people who I know, it's easier for us to kind of push this thought behind, well, yeah, the whole world was suffering. But then as soon as it's someone
Mhm.
it totally changes how you feel and think, because you can picture that person who so well, like your mom,
Yeah.
and like, oh wow, she has to sleep on the dirt floor, and I know she has like chronic, lung disorder, and like what it will do to her. She probably will die just from. And my mom told me, she said, "I'm never ever going back to the pump shelter because I will die from lung disease, like from getting sick." And so yeah, when you have someone, to picture who you feel strongly, who you feel have feelings for the person, and so that's how it's hard to push this thought behind. And so I thought, but yeah, who am I to even think what I can do? And so I thought, well, I'm just going to continue with my life. And I get a phone call from friends who they adopted two kids from Ukraine, and that's why they felt connected to Ukraine through adoption. And so they called me, and because I was the one who helped them with that adoption, so they called me and they said, "Let's go to Ukraine and help refugees." Or to Poland and help refugees. And I told them, of course not. Like, I don't have money to help. It will be very expensive to fly there. We cannot make any difference. It will be just a waste of money and of our time. It's too bad the war happened, but let's just continue on with our lives. And they said, "Oh, that's sorry. That's too bad that to hear that, but we'll go without you."
Mm.
And as soon as I hang up the phone, I had this feeling that I always get when I do something bad, like when I do something that is wrong. And I thought, oh wow, I didn't think it was that bad, just not to go, not to agree to go with them. And I called right away. It took maybe 2 minutes to think that, to feel that and to rethink. And so I called them and I told them I changed my mind. I'm going. And they said that was fast.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I was gonna go, but I thought, well, it's too bad. I really cannot help those people. Maybe I can make sandwiches. Maybe I can help moms, wipe, babies' butts and, as they cross the border, just simple things. And so I was heading there, like I thought I will be going there with not much to offer and a little, what we could do there, but well, we still decided that it's better than nothing. And then somehow the word got out that I was going to Ukraine, and my community, they showed up. Well, pretty much like everywhere at my door. There was a place in town, it's called Art Walk, and sometimes I'm there with Ukrainian things. But yeah, the whole town showed up. And for 2 weeks, I could not do much at my house because there was a knock on my door and it was someone with cash or check. And I just realized like I can't really do much because I know that like there will be a person at my door
Mm.
constantly, for 2 weeks. And so by the time I had to go, I had several $1,000s to spend on refugees. And in Ukraine, it's even more money than in America because you can buy more with the same amount of money.
Mhm.
And so it was unbelievable that like how would I know when I agreed to go, how would I know would have this? But that was a test of faith, to make this step because it felt right without knowing that the Lord will provide. And so yeah, I was going with quite a bit of cash, and then when we arrived there, at the same day, within like few days, someone came before, someone came a little after, but we all ended up on the same Sunday in church, and realized that all these people had the same prompting that they needed to go there and to do something. And so we organized like together, we organized the system. Who is renting vans? Who is driving vans to the border, picking up people? Of course, I served as an interpreter. Who is staying behind and cooking meals just nonstop? Who is going shopping to provide clothes because refugees were coming with nothing, and to dress them up? Who is taking them to train stations and buying tickets to send them further in Europe? So there was like a whole machine system organized, and it went for weeks like that. And then when someone, because we were all, we all have families, we all have jobs, so we all had to return after a few weeks. And we were terrified. Who is going to keep doing this? Because that machine was working so nicely, but always about a day or two before someone had to leave, another person would show up with these blank eyes and burning heart, like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I felt I needed to come.
Wow.
And each of us knew it was to replace like me or another person or another. And it was like that, but like someone behind it was planning. that this person needs to leave, so I need to inspire this person to come and take their place. And it was going like that for weeks, like a beautiful machine, as if someone was on the top planning all this. And I know who it was because I'm, a person of faith. And so I know God was planning all that. And it was just a matter of not pushing that thought that, oh, is there something I can do? And to say, no, there's nothing I can do because I'm too little. I'm like a bug in this universe who cannot do anything. And like to stop yourself. No, every person has something to offer, because how many people were inspired to come to my door and bring that donation? If they pushed that thought behind, then this wouldn't happen. I probably would go and just make sandwiches.
Mm.
But we were able to save so many people and bring them from the border because they were just stuck at the border. There was still 3 hour, 2, 3 hour drive to get to the city where there was a chance for them to get accommodated or get on the train and go to, like, say, Germany, because Germany was accepting people and accommodating them. And so they were all stuck at the border. And yeah, if so many people did not follow that inspiration to donate or to go to Poland, to Ukraine, and do other multiple things, some people brought and donated things. They said, this is what I have. I have this skill. So this is the certificate I will do. I will donate 10 hours of cleaning someone's house. And they would, offer things like that. Well, people will say, I'm a good organizer. Here's my time, and sell it if you can, or give it to someone to thank for their efforts. And there were so many creative ideas of what people offered to me. I was just impressed by how people did not push that thought away and did not say, oh, I'm too poor, I'm too busy. And they just thought, okay, what can I do in my circumstances? And then this beautiful thing happened, and it's still continuing to happen.
Wow. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I wanted to know how your mom's doing today.
She's doing good. She finally, oh, it was another story of what it was like for her to leave her home, because she is one of those people who never wants to travel, never wants to see anything new. She's just completely fine sitting in her home and being just home all the time. She's a homebody. And the only time she would go out when I come and visit her once a year every summer. I would take my son and we go and visit her, stay a month with her. And then I take her hand and, like, let's go and visit places. And my mom would say, are you sure? Do we really need to go anywhere? Aren't we just happy here? So she's one of those people. And then when the war started, and I told her, Mom, you need to go to a different country. You need to leave. And so she laughed and she said, you know that you're joking, right? That you expect me to go to another country. And I had to even, like, threaten her. I told her, if you won't make this step, if you won't leave Ukraine, I will have to come and I probably will get stuck there and I will never see my family. And so she was, of course, she didn't want that. And so she gathered all her courage, and lots of miracles had to happen for her to be able to leave. And so she finally, well, she got to Poland. She had to spend 3 months in a refugee center. And I just could not imagine my mom, like, at all, sleeping not in her own bed with 240 other people, sharing space. And oh, it was hard. But eventually she got here. 3 months later, she was here in the United States. And now it's been almost 3 years. And now finally she says, I think I can start this. I can start calling this place home.
Mm.
But it took that long. And maybe because of her personality, because she's just not the kind of person who likes adventure. So it was a little more rough for her.
Yeah. You
But yeah,
were
she's doing good.
That's
And I
good.
keep her involved. I keep her each time I do an event. I need so much help with cooking, help with, like, folding invitations or this or that. And so I keep her so busy that she gets distracted from sad thoughts about her home in Ukraine.
Hmm. And you were able to sponsor her. Was it through the Uniting for Ukraine program that you were able to sponsor her?
Yes, yeah, United for Ukraine. Yeah, and so she came as a refugee.
Wow. What was your childhood like in Ukraine, and what brought you to eventually live in Pocatello?
I think I had a great childhood. I don't know. It was during the USSR, and I know people think it was horrible, but we all grow up, where we are, and we take it as normal, natural. And so I thought I was a great childhood. I could go into details about that, but so I was actually raised as an atheist because at the time religions were not allowed, and so everyone was an atheist, pretty much everyone. If you weren't, then you probably ended up in prison or like outcast. So because you couldn't hold a job, like you were persecuted if you were a religious person. And so when the USSR fell apart, that's what happened. Different religions they flooded the
Mm.
country and started proselyting. And when I was 24, I met missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I I felt like, wow, this is amazing that there's something like that, and that's what I felt, that God exists and that He loves me. And I got baptized and joined the church, and then I wanted to share this change that happened was so amazing because for 24 years living as an atheist, and then the life was now great, having God in my life. And so I went on a mission to Russia, served my mission there, and when I got back, my husband was serving as a missionary in my home city, and that's how we met briefly because he was about to go home and I just returned from my mission. But we exchanged email addresses and stayed in touch for 9 months, and he came back and we got married. And so this is how I ended up here.
So your dating life was email.
Yeah, that's my no other, yeah, dating, but just talking a lot through emails. And now my husband can say that I'm his souvenir from his mission.
Oh my gosh. So you guys you stayed in Ukraine, you said, for about a year, and then did you move to Pocatello after that?
Yeah, yeah. So when he came, when we got married in Ukraine, we decided to travel, and he showed me places where he served his mission, cities, and then I took him to Russia. It was very easy at the time because Russia and Ukraine, we didn't have borders. We just traveled as you would travel to another state.
Mm.
And so I took him to St. Petersburg. That's where I served my mission, and showed him places, but mostly people who I taught, who I met. And so we both shared, our experiences from our missions. And then, yeah, just spent a year living in Zaporizhzhia, the city where I was born. And that's the one that has the nuclear reactor. If you remember, it was on fire at the beginning of the war. And so, yeah, and then after a year, we came to Pocatello and lived here ever since for 20 years now.
What was it like for you to leave Ukraine and move to Pocatello?
It was interesting. I mean, it was different, but my husband became my life. Like, he was the most important person, and that felt like my home moved with me because he was my home.
Hmm.
Because we moved together, it felt right. It felt, I don't know, I felt like at home right away. I think I have very flexible personality. I can adjust to different cultural differences and enjoy, yeah, new friendships and new opportunities. I didn't realize that God had this plan. He placed me where I was in the position to help my people. I don't know. Right now, I'm thinking just like, Joseph that was sold to Egypt. He was,
Hmm.
then he could save his family. It feels a little bit like that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing that you've been able to bring the community together through you to support. It sounds like such a supportive community. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, Pocatello is how many people live there?
About, I want to say 50,
Okay.
55,000. So for Ukrainian standards, it's a very small community because I'm from almost a 1 million city population. It's more like 800,000, but all cities are about a million, a couple millions. And so this is a very small, we would probably call it a big village
Yeah.
by Ukrainian standards. But yeah, this community is amazing because each time I do a project, I think, okay, I already used up all the energy, all the resources people have to offer. I'm sure they already sick of me asking. They're tired of the war. They're tired of me. And I already had, like I said, I had 9 trips, and this is going to be my number 10 in a couple of weeks. And between the trips, I had other fundraisers, other events. And so altogether, I probably had around, I don't know, maybe 15 events. And people somehow they're not getting tired of me. They're not getting tired of helping. It's like as if they're, yeah, they don't run down on their generosity and compassion. And it's just each time I come up with a project, they're like, yes, let's do it. And they show up and they donate and they come and support, because I don't get paid for doing any events. And sometimes it takes 2 months of my time. I have to even sometimes like stop working. I have to move all my hours and work them, more later, like after or before the event. And it takes many, many people who will come and set up, clean, donate, run errands for this event. And yeah, just so this World Refugee Day, I finally uh, decided to like make something like some kind of, for safekeeping, some kind of thank you for all my volunteers. And I sat down and started counting, and it turned out that I had 250 volunteers.
Wow.
And I thought, whoa, I didn't realize that to put this event together took that many people. But because, we had 26 countries represented. And so someone had to cook each dish. Someone had to donate for each dish, because we didn't have, like, I don't have money. And so I need to find a person like, can you pay for this meal?
Mm.
And then again, set up, decorate, find raffle prizes, and dance, all kinds of small and big things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, 250 volunteers to put one event. And I imagine it was maybe about that number for other events. I just never counted. I never had time to stop. It was one event after another, one trip after another. I just didn't have time to even breathe. And so I didn't have time to thank people properly. And this is first time I feel like, oh, I have a small window between World Refugee Day and before I go to Ukraine. And so I finally had time to sit down and count how many people it took. And I feel embarrassed that for 3 years, people did so much and I didn't even have time to thank them. I try to thank them, when I can, to post it on Facebook and, on the news or, interviews, and to thank them. But often I just walk, to the store, and I see people and I wonder, because it felt like the whole town was involved in each event.
Mm.
And I always wonder, what if this person donated and I have no idea? Maybe I should come up to this person and thank them for donating, but it feels weird. And sometimes people come up to me and I have no idea who they are, and they say, I donated to one of your events. And I'm like, oh, thank you for telling me, because now I can thank you personally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. You had a really creative way of thanking volunteers that I saw on Facebook. You put their names in the jar, and then you found like cool stuff from your house. Like you had canned some goodies, or you had tickets to the movies. You just had random things. And as you were drawing names, you would share about that person and what they gave. And I wasn't even at this event, and I felt, well, what a special way. Like it just felt very tight knit, and your graciousness and your thoughtfulness, even though, like you said, I don't have, anything big or expensive that I can give away, but the meaningfulness of what you did, it was cool to see. I think that's the kind of heart that keeps this going. So you definitely bring that to the mix.
Oh, thank you, because I felt very silly doing it. And I thought, oh, I hope that people won't make
No,
fun of me, or they won't
I
think that this is silly to offer.
I thought it was really thoughtful of you. And it just showed the fact that you had that jar full of names was a really cool visual of what it takes, how everyone has their part. And you mentioned to me you do a different kind of raffle too. I don't know if you're still doing this, but you've been encouraging people to reach out to their congressional representatives to help vouch for people who did come here as refugees from Ukraine. to help vouch for them, keeping their work authorization, keeping their status. And so
Yeah,
what
I
did,
just barely, yeah, I
yeah,
just barely had this raffle. When was it? 2 days ago on Sunday, I raffled. Usually it's Ukrainian dinner because that's what I can make. I can fix Ukrainian dinner for family. But last one, I went to a Ukrainian store. We don't have a Ukrainian store here. It's in Salt Lake, the closest one. And so when I
mm,
go, I get things that I miss. And so I got a bag specifically for the raffle. And so someone who won this, got one of everything that I crave personally. This is what I always go to the store for. And so I had a bag full of Ukrainian things. And yeah, I did ask them to call our House representatives and senators and to ask on behalf of Ukrainian refugees to allow them to work again.
mm.
And people, yeah, started calling. And so they call and they tell me I put their name in the jar.
And then they might win a goodie or a meal from you. That is so
Yeah.
cool that you do that.
Well,
Um,
whatever I can do, I guess, like I said, we don't have to be very rich or very famous, very important. We all can do something small.
yeah.
And people called me and they said, I called, don't put my name in jar, but because of what I was doing, because of the way I was encouraging them to call, they said they started developing a habit of calling representatives. And so they just let me know. They said, thank you for encouraging us. Don't bother put our name in the jar. We just want you to know that we started doing it regularly. And so I'm glad that it did have an effect because I was again was worried that, oh, this is so silly and so unprofessional. I don't know.
No,
Immature.
I think it's cool. It's like it's the community that will get us through these kind of things, and I think you have a good way of bringing people together over a shared hope.
Wow. I wonder, there's this cool story. Oh, this is such a cool story. And I'm sure you heard it. Have you attended the Northwest Resettlement Conference in the
Mhm.
fall that was in Caldwell? Were you there?
Yeah, that's our office that puts that on. So I was there.
Oh, so I was there. I was
Oh,
there from Bridges. And if you remember, if you heard that story, I don't remember his name, guy from Congo. And he said, this is a story from his grandfather who was 100 years old. Do you remember he talked about family? And I picture this, family in Congo. And so this young family is looking for where to settle. Do you remember that story?
I don't remember it.
Oh, can I tell you?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so he said, this is this is how you choose where you want to stay. So here's the family. Okay, I'll try not to cry. So a family in Congo, a young family that is deciding where should we raise our kids, where should we settle. And this is what they do. They walk to the nearest village, rent a hut for the night. The husband pulls out a cow skin, stretches it, and starts banging it with a stick. And the wife, she sits in a chair, very comfortable, and she starts screaming. And they go like that for a while, and nothing happens. So they go to bed, wake up, pack up, and move to another village. Walk the whole day. Again, get to the village, rent a hut. The husband pulls out cow skin, starts banging it with a stick. The wife starts screaming. Nothing happens. They pack up in the morning and move to another village. And now it's going to be different because always like third time is the charm. And so they get to this third village, do the same thing, rent the hut. The husband pulls out cow skin, starts banging it. The wife starts screaming. And then people start showing up at their door
Mm.
and banging on the door and saying, what's going on? Like, open the door. Are you abusing your wife? Like, we are not leaving this house until you open the door.
Wow.
And the husband opens the door and he says, dear friends, come in and feast with us because we have feast prepared for you because this is the community where we want to stay. And I thought, this is my community.
Mm.
This is how I feel because we cannot count always, like the recent events show that we cannot always count on the government to protect us. Even police, is not always capable or around. We just cannot count on those people. We need to live in a community that we can count on them. And of course, we cannot count on someone doing this, but we can also always be the people, like those people who showed up at the door. We can decide, I'm going to be that person who shows up and who is going to protect, even though I'm not in danger. Like the rights of refugees are being, you know, you know, taken away, or they're the ones who are suffering. I'm fine, I'm a citizen. If we have the attitude that, well, I'm fine, it doesn't touch me, so like I can just ignore it. Or we can be like those people in that village who had no idea who this family was, this new family, and they showed up at the door. Maybe it was dangerous, right? Maybe the husband had a gun, and so it can be anything. And so if we decide to be that kind of community who will show up even if our personal interests are not touched or are threatened, and so we can decide to be that kind of community. And I believe Pocatello is that kind of community where you want to live, because you can count on them. Like they will show up at your door if you start screaming.
Mm. Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, it was like the opening of that conference. I thought,
Yeah,
wow.
that's
This is how
that's
you
cool.
choose, right? This is how you choose where to live. You
Yep.
do this experiment,
Yeah.
social experiment.
Wow. Well, Lena, it's been such an honor to get to know you a little bit through this and to talk with you and learn about what you're doing. And I wanted to know if there's anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners before we go today.
Oh, just this one thing, that never think that you are too powerless or too poor or too insignificant, too small, too nobody. Like, don't just think that I'm a nobody. That's why I cannot make a difference. And yeah, because we always can make a difference. And as soon as we accept that idea and do that one thing, opportunities will just start showing up at your door one after another, because God, He sees who He can count on. And that's why He will know, oh, this is my person. If I need this job to be done, I go to this person.
Mhm.
Like, because that's how in life, right? Through doing these events, I already know who I can count on. And that's why when there's something important, I go to that person. I think that's how God, He figures out who He can go to and for the job to be done. And yeah, don't think that you're nobody, that you cannot make a difference. And don't wait until, like, oh, I will wait until my life changes, maybe until I retire, or until my kids grow up or something. Like, don't fall into that trap to put something aside until better days. There's always, in any circumstances, something that everyone can do to contribute.
Well, thank you. That's a really good message to hear. And I wish you all the best on your upcoming trip. And excited to hear how that goes for you and hear how it goes to have water in that area for the first time in many years. So that's exciting to know that the Idahoans like you had a piece of helping to bring that. So hope you have a great trip, and we're excited to hear updates when you get back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for joining the conversation. For more information on how to be involved with refugee resettlement, please visit idahorefugees.org. Mosaics is produced by the Idaho Office for Refugees with grant support from the MJ Murdoch Charitable Trust. Music by the Afrosonics. Production in partnership with SB Studios.